Namaste. Blessed love and peace. This is the recitation of Tobadi Gokadao, Torah, Bhagavad Gita, Digha Dhammapada, Gospels, Quran, and Tao Te Ching. It is portion numero 17, which is Beshalach, which includes from Torah. Parsha Beshalach, which is Shmot 13:17 a 16. From the Chandogya Upanishad, it is Kanda Dos, Kanda Dos, chapter 23. From the Bhagavad Gita, it is the Deva Sura Sampad Vibhaga Yogehe, numero 17. From Tao Te Ching, it is chapter 16. From Lunyu, it is chapter 16. From the Digha Nikaya, it is the Lohika Sutta, which is numero 12. From the Dhammapada, it is the Piya Vaga, which is numero 16. It is from the Gospels, Mark, chapters 3 a 4. And from the Quran, it is Surah Bani Israel, which is numero 17. Oh, and from the Sri Guru Granth Sahib, it is verses 28 a 30. Bismillah ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim. Allah wabham. Dao ka dao fe chong dao, ming ka ming fe chong ming. Ja Rastafari. Deus noster quies in cele santo facito nomen tuum. Vahe Guru Sanam. Baruch ata Elohim, Eloheinu melech haolam, barei b'riagafem. Amen. Baruch ata Elohim, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kasanu b'mitotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'revai Torah. Amen. Kyrie eleison, siva mas tu v'save jagatehem, sabe sata b'avantu sukitata. Vagabiyam. Aquaba upendo na amani. Fikiri in Islami. Chinta dan paramean libovame umajika. Ubuntu shabana fakitka. Sheshem. Kamosanina domo arigato. Pelama yelo wakatoko. Toko doko shingun. Gomanagan. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Ata jamya yata afanami. Mado. Hope. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Amen. Torah Beshalach. It came to pass when Pharaoh let the people go that Elohim did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, for it was near, because Elohim said, lest the people reconsider when they see war and return to Egypt. So Elohim led the people around by way of the desert to the Sea of Reeds, and the children of Israel were armed when they went up out of Egypt. Moshe took Joseph's bones with him, for he, Joseph, had adjured the sons of Israel, saying, Elohim will surely remember you, and you shall bring up my bones from here with you. They traveled from Sukkot, and they encamped at Etam, at the edge of the desert. And Elohim went before them by day in a pillar of cloud, to cause it to lead them on the way, and at night in a pillar of fire to give them light. Thus they could travel day and night. Elohim did not move away from the pillar of cloud by day, or the pillar of fire at night from before the people. Elohim spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and let them turn back and encamp in front of Pi Hahirot, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal Zephon. You shall encamp opposite it by the sea. And Pharaoh will say about the children of Israel, They are trapped in the land, the desert has closed in upon them. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, and I will be glorified through Pharaoh and through his entire force, and the Egyptians will know that I am Elohim. And they did so. It was reported to Pharaoh that the people had fled, and Pharaoh and his servants had a change of heart towards the people, and they said, "What is this that we have done, that we have released Israel from serving us?" So he, Pharaoh, harnessed his chariot and took his people with him. He took 600 select chariots and all the chariots of Egypt with officers over them all. And Elohim hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and he chased after the children of Israel, and the children of Israel were marching out triumphantly. The Egyptians chased after them and overtook them, encamped by the sea, every horse of Pharaoh's chariots, his horsemen, and his force beside Pi-Hahirot, in front of Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh drew near, and the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were advancing after them. They were very frightened, and the children of Israel cried out to Elohim. They said to Moshe, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us to die in the desert? What is this that you have done to us to take us out of Egypt? Isn't this the thing about which we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, 'Leave us alone, and we will serve the Egyptians, because we would rather serve the Egyptians than die in the desert?'" Moshe said to the people, "Don't be afraid. Stand firm and see Elohim's salvation, that Elohim will wreak for you today. For the way you have seen the Egyptians is only today, but you shall no longer continue to see them for eternity. Elohim will fight for you, but you shall remain silent." Elohim said to Moshe, "Why do you cry out to me? Speak to the children of Israel and let them travel. And you raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and split it, and the children of Israel shall come in the midst of the sea on dry land. And I, behold, I shall harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they will come after you, and I will be glorified through Pharaoh and through all his force, through his chariots and through his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am Elohim, when I will be glorified through Pharaoh, through his chariots and through his horsemen." Then the angel of Elohim, who had been going in front of the Israelite camp, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved away from in front of them and stood behind them. And he came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel, and there were the cloud and the darkness, and it illuminated the night, and one did not draw near the other all night long. And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and Elohim led the sea with the strong east wind all night. And Elohim made the sea into dry land, and the waters split. Then the children of Israel came into the midst of the sea on dry land, and the waters were to them as a wall from their right and from their left. The Egyptians pursued and came after them, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen, into the midst of the sea. It came about in the Matan watch, that Elohim looked down over the Egyptian camp through a pillar of fire and cloud, and Elohim threw the Egyptian camp into confusion. And Elohim removed the wheels of their chariots, and Elohim led them with heaviness, and the Egyptians said, "Let me run away from the Israelites, because Elohim is fighting for them against the Egyptians." Thereupon Elohim said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, and let the water return upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." So Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and towards Matan the sea returned to its strength, and the Egyptians were fleeing towards it. And Elohim stirred the Egyptians into the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and the entire force of Pharaoh coming after them into the sea. Not even one of them survived. But the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea, and the water was to them like a wall from their right and from their left. On that day Elohim saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dying on the seashore. And Israel saw the great hand which Elohim had utilized upon the Egyptians, and the people feared Elohim, and they believed in Elohim and in Moshe, Elohim's servant. Then Moshe and the children of Israel sang this song to Elohim, and they spoke, saying, "I will sing to Elohim, for very exalted is Elohim. A horse and its rider Elohim cast into the sea. The eternal strength and Elohim's vengeance were my salvation. This is my God, and I will make Elohim a habitation, the God of my far, and I will ascribe to Elohim exaltation. Elohim is a master of war. Elohim is Elohim's name. Pharaoh's chariots and his horsemen Elohim cast into the sea, and the elite of his officers sank in the sea of reeds. The depths covered them. They descended into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Elohim, is most powerful. Your right hand, O Elohim, crushes the foe. And with your great pride you tear down those who rise up against you, and you send forth your burning wrath. It devours them like straw. And with the breath of your nostrils the waters were heaped up, and the running waters stood erect like a wall. The depths congealed in the heart of the sea. Because the enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will share the booty. My desire will be filled from them. I will draw my sword, my hand will impoverish them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the powerful waters. Who is like you amongst the powerful, O Elohim? Who is like you, powerful in the holy place? Too awesome for praises, performing wonders. You inclined your right hand, the earth swallowed them up. With your loving kindness you led the people you redeemed. You led them with your might to your holy abode. peoples heard, they trembled, a shudder seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chieftains of Edom were startled. As for the powerful men of Moab, trembling seized them. All the inhabitants of Canaan melted. May dread and fright fall upon them. With the arm of your greatness may they become as still as a stone, until your people cross over, O Elohim, until this nation that you have acquired crosses over. You shall bring them and plant them out. You shall bring them and plant them on the mount of your heritage, directed towards your habitation, which you made, O Elohim, the sanctuary, O Elohim, which your hands founded. Elohim will reign to all eternity. When Pharaoh's horses came with his chariots and his horsemen into the sea, and Elohim brought the waters of the sea back upon them, and the children of Israel walked on dry land in the midst of the sea. Miriam, the prophetess, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women came out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam called out to them, Sing to Elohim, for very exalted is Elohim. A horse and its rider Elohim cast into the sea. Moshe led Israel away from the Sea of Reeds, and they went out into this desert of Shur. They walked for 3 days in the desert, but did not find water. They came to Marah, but they could not drink water from Marah, because it was bitter. Therefore it was named Marah. The people complained against Moshe, saying, What shall we drink? So he cried out to Elohim, and Elohim instructed him concerning a portion of wood, which he cast into the river, and the water became sweet. There Elohim gave them a statute and an ordinance, and there Elohim tested them. And Elohim said, If you hearken to the voice of Elohim your God, and you do what is proper in Elohim's eyes, and you listen closely to Elohim's commandments, and observe all Elohim's statutes, all the sicknesses that I visited upon Egypt I will not visit upon you, for I Elohim heal you. They came to Elim, and there were 12 water fountains and 70 palms, and they camped there by the water. They journeyed from Elim, and the entire community of the children of Israel came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt. The entire community of the children of Israel complained against Moshe and against Aaron in the desert. The children of Israel said to them, If only we had died by the hand of Elohim in the land of Egypt, when we sat by pots of meat, when we ate bread to our fill. For you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire congregation to death. So Elohim said to Moshe, Behold, I am going to rain down for you bread from heaven, and the people shall go out and gather what is needed for the day, so that I can test them whether or not they will follow my teaching. And it shall be on the 6th day that when they prepare what they bring, it will be double of what they gather every day. Thereupon Moshe and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, In the evening you shall know that Elohim brought you out of the land of Egypt. In the matin you shall see the glory of Elohim when Elohim hears your complaints against Elohim. But of what significance are we, that you make the people complain against us? And Moshe said, When Elohim gives you in the evening meat to eat and bread in the matin with which to become sated, when Elohim hears your complaints which you are making, the people complain against Elohim. But of what significance are we? Not against us are your complaints, but against Elohim. And Moshe said to Aaron, Say to the entire community of the children of Israel, Draw near before Elohim, for Elohim has heard your complaints. And it came to pass when Aaron spoke to the entire community of the children of Israel, that they turned towards the desert, and behold, the glory of Elohim appeared in the cloud. Elohim spoke to Moshe, saying, I have heard the complaints of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, In the afternoon you shall eat meat, and in the matin you shall be sated with bread, and you shall know that I am Elohim your God. It came to pass in the evening that the quails went up and covered the camp, and in the matin there was a layer of dew around the camp. The layer of dew went up, and behold, on the surface of the desert a fine bare substance, as fine as frost on the ground. When the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, It is manna, because they did not know what it was. And Moshe said to them, It is the bread that Elohim has given you to eat. This is the thing that Elohim has commanded. Gather of it each one according to his eating capacity, and omer for each person. According to the number of persons, each one of those in his tent you shall take. And the children of Israel did so. They gathered both the one who had much and the one who had little, and the one who gathered little. Both the one who gathered much and the one who gathered little. And they measured it with an omer, and whoever had gathered much did not have further, and whoever gathered little did not have less. Each one according to his capacity. Each one according to his eating capacity they gathered. And Moshe said to them, Let no one leave over any of it until matin. But some men did not obey Moshe, and left over some of it until matin, and it bred worms and became putrid, and Moshe became angry with them. They gathered it matin by matin, each one according to his eating capacity, and when the soleil grew hot, it melted. It came to pass on the 6th day that they gathered a double portion of bread, 2 omers for each one, and all the princes of the community came and reported it to Moshe. So he said to them, that is what Elohim spoke. Mañana is a rest day, a holy Shabbat to Elohim. Bake whatever you wish to bake, and cook whatever you wish to cook, and all the rest leave over to keep until Matan. So they left it over until Matan, as Moshe had commanded, and it did not become putrid, and not a worm was in it. And Moshe said, eat it today, for today is a Shabbat to Elohim. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is Shabbat on it, there will be none. It came about that on the 7th day some of the people went out to gather manna, but they did not find any. Elohim said to Moshe, how long will you refuse to observe my commandments and my teachings? See that Elohim has given you Shabbat. Therefore, on the 6th day, Elohim gives you bread for 2 days. Let each man remain in his place. Let no man leave his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. The house of Israel named it manna, and it was like coriander seed. It was white, and it tasted like a wafer with honey. Moshe said, this is the thing that Elohim commanded. Let 1 omer full of it be preserved for your generations, in order that they see the bread that I fed you in the desert when I took you out of the land of Egypt. And Moshe said to Aaron, take 1 jug and put there an omer full of manna, and deposit it before Elohim to be preserved for your generations. As Elohim had commanded Moshe, Aaron deposited it before the testimony to be preserved. And the children of Israel ate the manna for 40 years, until they came to an inhabited land. They ate the manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. The omer is 1/10 of an ephah. The entire community of the children of Israel journeyed from the desert of Sin into their travels by the mandate of Elohim. They encamped at Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. So the people quarreled with Moshe, and they said, give us water that we may drink. Moshe said to them, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test Elohim? The people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moshe, and they said, why have you brought us up from Egypt to make me and my children and my livestock die of thirst? Moshe cried out to Elohim, saying, what shall I do for this people? Just a little longer, and they will stone me. And Elohim said to Moshe, pass before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take into your hand your staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I shall stand there before you on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, and the people will drink. Moshe did so before the eyes of the elders of Israel. He named the place Massah, testing, and Meribah, quarreling, because of the quarrel of the children of Israel, and because of their testing Elohim, saying, is Elohim in our midst or not? Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. So Moshe said to Yehoshua, pick men for us, and go out and fight against Amalek. Mañana I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of Elohim in my hand. Yehoshua did as Moshe had told him, to fight against Amalek. And Moshe, Aaron, and Hur ascended to the top of the hill. It came to pass that when Moshe would raise his hand, Israel would prevail, and when he would lay down his hand, Amalek would prevail. Now Moshe's hands were heavy, so they took a stone and placed it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one from his side, one from this side, and one from that side. So he was with his hands in faith until the soleil set. Yehoshua weakened Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Elohim said to Moshe, inscribe this as a memorial in the book, and recite it into Yehoshua's ears, that I will surely obliterate the members of Amalek from beneath the heavens. Then Moshe built an altar, and he named it Elohim is my miracle. And he said, for there is a hand on the throne of the Eternal, that there shall be a war for Elohim against Amalek from generation to generation. Chandogyu Upanishads, Kanda 2:23. There are 3 divisions of Dharma: offering, study, and charity form the first. Austerity is the second. Dwelling in the house of the teacher as a brahmacharyan, always afflicting the body in the house of the teacher, is the third. All of those who practice these Dharma attain the worlds of the virtuous, but one who is established in Brahman obtains eternal life. Prajapati brooded on the worlds. From them, thus brooded upon, there was revealed in his heart the threefold knowledge. He brooded on it, and from it, thus brooded on, brooded upon, there issued forth these syllables: Bu, Babaha, Svaha. He brooded on them the three syllables, and from them thus brooded upon, there issued forth Om. As all leaves are held together by a midrib, so is all speech held together by Om, Brahman. Om is all this, yea, Om is all this. Bhagavad Gita, Devasura Sampad Vibhaga Yogehe, numero 16. Sri Krishna says, fearlessness, purity of heart, steadfastness in knowledge and yoga, charity, self-control, and offering, study of the scriptures, austerity, and uprightness, nonviolence, truth, and freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, and aversion to slander, compassion to beings and freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, and absence of fickleness, courage, forgiveness, and fortitude, purity, and freedom from malice and overweening pride. These belong to him who is born with sacred treasures. Ostentatious arrogance and self-conceit, anger, rudeness, and ignorance, these belong to him who is born to the heritage of the demons. The sacred treasures are said to be for the purpose of liberation, and the heritage of the demons for bondage. Grieve not, O Pandava, you are born with sacred treasures. There are two types of beings created in this world, the sacred and the demoniac. The sacred have been described at length. Hear now from me, O Partha, concerning the demoniac. Men of demoniac nature know not what to do and what to refrain from doing. Purity is not in them, nor benevolent conduct, nor truth. They say the world is devoid of truth, without a virtuous basis, and without a deity. It is brought about by the union of male and female, and lust alone is its cause. What else? Holding such a view, these lost souls of little understanding and fierce deeds rise as the enemies of the world for its destruction. Giving themselves up to insatiable desires full of hypocrisy, pride, and arrogance, they hold false views through delusion and act with impure resolve. Beset with innumerable cares which will end only with death, looking on the gratification of desire as their highest goal, and feeling sure that this is all, bound by 100 ties of hope, given up wholly to lust and wrath, they strive by unjust means to amass wealth for the satisfaction of their passions. This I have gained today, and that longing I will fulfill. This wealth is mine, and that also shall be mine in future. That enemy I have slain, and others too I will slay. I am the master of all. I enjoy. I am prosperous, mighty, and happy. I am rich. I am of high birth. Who else is equal to me? I will offer sacrifices. I will give. I will rejoice. Thus, deluded by ignorance, bewildered by many fancies, entangled in the meshes of delusion, addicted to the gratification of lust, they fall into a loathsome hell. Self-honored, haughty, filled with the pride and the intoxication of wealth, they ostentatiously perform offerings which are so only in name, in utter disregard of precepts. Possessed of egotism, power, and pride, and also of lust and wrath, these people, envious by nature, hate me in the bodies of others and in their own. These cruel haters, these evildoers, these vilest of men, I hurl always into the wombs of the demons in the cycle of births and deaths. Having fallen into the wombs of the demons and being deluded from birth to birth, they never attain me, O Sanukunti, but go further down to the lowest state. 3 are the gateways of this hell, leading to the ruin of the self: lust, wrath, and greed. Therefore let man renounce these 3. The man who has escaped these 3 gates of darkness, O Sanukunti, practices what is benevolent for himself and thus attains the supreme goal. He who discards the injunctions of the scriptures and acts upon the impulse of desire attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme goal. Therefore let the scriptures be your authority in determining what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. Having learnt the injunctions of the scriptures, you should do your work in the world. Tao Te Ching 16. Attain the ultimate emptiness. Hold on to the truest tranquility. The myriad things are all active. I therefore watch their return. Everything flourishes. Each returns to its root. Returning to the root is called tranquility. Tranquility is called returning to one's nature. Returning to one's nature is called constancy. Knowing constancy is called clarity. Not knowing constancy, one recklessly causes trouble. Knowing constancy is acceptance. Acceptance is impartiality. Impartiality is sovereign. Sovereign is heaven. Heaven is Tao. Tao is eternal. The self is no further without danger. Ligne 16. The head of the Qi family is going to launch an attack on Chuan Yu. Jian Yu and Qi Lu go to see Kong Fuzi and say, the Qi family are going to take action against Chuan Yu. Kong Fuzi says, Qi, surely it is you who are at fault. Formerly, a royal ancestor of ours gave Chuan Yu the responsibility of offering to the Tungmen mountain. Further, their territory now lies within our boundaries. Thus, they are a bulwark of the state. What reason can there be to attack them? Jian Yu says, it is what our master wishes. Neither of us is in favor of it. Kong Fuzi says, Chu, there is a saying of Chu Zhen's, which goes, let men who have strength to display join the ranks. Let those who lack the strength give up their places. What utilization to a blind man is the assistant who does not steady him when he totters, or support him when he falls? Further, what you said is quite wrong. Whose fault is it when the tiger and the rhinoceros escape from their cages, or when the tortoiseshell and the jade are destroyed in their caskets? Jian Yu says, but Chuan Yu is strongly fortified and close to Pi. If it is not taken now, it is sure to be a source of trouble for the descendants of our master in the future. Kong Fuzi says, True. The gentleman detests those who, rather than saying outright that they want something, can be counted on to gloss over their remarks. What I have heard is that the head of a state of a noble family worries not about underpopulation, but about uneven distribution, not about poverty, but about instability. For where there is even distribution, there is no such thing as poverty. Where there is harmony, there is no such thing as an underpopulation. And where there is stability, there is no such thing as overturning. It is for this reason that when distant subjects are so unsubmissive, one cultivates one's virtuous quality in order to attract them. And once they have come, one makes them content. But you have not been able either to help your master to attract the distant subjects when they are unsubmissive, or to preserve the state when it is disintegrating. Instead, you propose to resort to the utilization of arms within the state itself. I am afraid that Qi Sun's worries lie not in Chuan Yu, but within the walls of his palace. Kong Fuzi says, when the way prevails in the empire, the rites and music and punitive expeditions are initiated by the emperor. When the way does not prevail in the empire, they are initiated by the feudal masters. When they are initiated by the feudal masters, it is not surprising if power does not pass from the emperor within 10 generations. When they are initiated by the counselors, it is not surprising if power does not pass from the feudal masters within 5 generations. When the prerogative to command in a state is in the hands of officials of the counselors, it is surprising if power does not pass from the counselors within 3 generations. When the way prevails in the empire, policy does not rest with the counselors. When the way prevails in the empire, the commoners do not express critical views. Kong Fuzi says, it is 5 generations since patronage passed out of the control of the ducal house. It is 4 generations since government came under the control of the counselors. For this reason, the descendants of the 3 houses of Huan are on the decline. Kong Fuzi says, he stands to benefit who makes friends with 3 kinds of people. Equally, he stands to lose who makes friends with 3 other kinds of people. To make friends with the straight, the trustworthy in word, and the well-informed is to benefit. To make friends with the ingratiating in action, the pleasant in appearance, and the plausible in speech is to lose. Kong Fuzi says, he stands to benefit who takes pleasure in 3 kinds of things. Equally, he stands to lose who takes pleasure in 3 other kinds of things. To take pleasure in the correct regulation of the rites and music, in singing the honors of other men's benevolence, and in having a large number of excellent men as friends is to benefit. To take pleasure in showing off in a dissolute life and in food and drink is to lose. Kong Fuzi says, when in attendance upon a gentleman, one is liable to 3 errors. To speak before being spoken to by the gentleman is rash. Not to speak when spoken to by him is to be evasive. To speak without observing the expression on his face is to be blind. Kong Fuzi says, there are 3 things the gentleman should guard against. In youth, when the blood and qi are still unsettled, he should guard against the attraction of feminine beauty. In the prime of life, when the blood and qi have become unyielding, he should guard against bellicosity. In old age, when the blood and qi have declined, he should guard against acquisitiveness. Confucius says, the gentleman stands in awe of three things. He is in awe of the decree of heaven. He is in awe of great men. He is in awe of the words of the sages. The small man, being ignorant of the decree of heaven, does not stand in awe of it. He treats great men with insolence and the words of the sages with derision. Confucius says, those who are born with knowledge are the highest. Next come those who attain knowledge through study. Next again come those who turn to study after having been vexed by difficulties. The common people, in so much as they make no effort to study even after having been vexed by difficulties, are the lowest. Confucius says, there are 9 things the gentleman turns his thought to seeing clearly when he utilizes his eyes, to hearing acutely when he utilizes his ears, to looking cordial when it comes to his countenance, to appearing respectful when it comes to his demeanor, to being conscientious when he speaks, to being reverent when he performs his duties, to seeking advice when he is in doubt, to the consequences when he is enraged, and to what is right at the sign of gain. Confucius says, seeing what is benevolent, I act as if I were in danger of being left behind. Seeing what is not benevolent, I act as if I were testing hot water. I have met such a man, I have heard such a claim. I live in retirement in order to attain my purpose and practice what is right in order to actualize my way. I have heard such a claim, but I have yet to meet such a man. Duke Qing of Qi had 1,000 teams of 4 horses each, but on his death the common people were unable to find anything for which to honor him, whereas Po Yi in Shuqi starved under Mount Shu Yang, and yet to this day the common people still sing their honors. This is probably what is meant. Chen Kong asks Po Yu, have you not been taught anything out of the ordinary? No, I have not. Once my father was standing by himself as I crossed the courtyard with quickened steps. He said, have you studied the odes? I answered, no. Unless you study the odes, you will be ill-equipped to speak. I retired and studied the odes. Another day my father was again standing by himself. As I crossed the courtyard with quickened steps, he said, have you studied the rites? I answered, no. Unless you study the rites, you will be ill-equipped to take your stand. I retired and studied the rites. I have been taught these 2 things. Chen Kong retires delighted and says, I asked 1 question and I got 3 answers. I learned about the odes, I learned about the rites, and I learned that a gentleman keeps aloof from his son. The master of a state utilizes the term lady for his wife. She utilizes the term little boy for herself. The people of the state referred to her by the term the lady of the master, but when abroad they utilize the term the little master. People of other states also refer to her by the term the lady of the master. Diganakaya, la Lohika Sutta, número 12. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was on a wandering tour amongst the Kosalans with a large sangha of bhikshus, approximately 500 bhikshus in all, and arrived at Salavatika. Now at that time the Brahmin Lohika was reigning with feudatory rights over Salavatika, together with its wealth, grass, timber, and grain, through a royal grant bestowed by King Pasenadi of Kosala. And at that time an evil viewpoint to this effect had arisen to him. Suppose that a Brahmin or contemplative were to arrive at a skillful doctrine. Having arrived at a skillful doctrine, he should not declare to anyone else, for what can one person do for another? It would be just the same as if, having cut through an old bond, one were to make another new bond. I say that such a thing is an evil, greedy deed, for what can one person do for another? Then Lohika heard it said, Gautama the contemplative, the son of the Sakyans, having gone forth from the Sakyan clan on a wandering tour amongst the Kosalans, with a large sangha of bhikshus, approximately 500 bhikshus in all, has arrived at Salavatika, and of that Master Gautama this fine reputation has spread. He is indeed a blessed one, worthy and rightly self-awakened, consummate in knowledge and conduct, well gone, a knower of the cosmos, an unexcelled trainer of those persons ready to be tamed, teacher of human and celestial beings, awakened lest he has made known, having actualized it through direct knowledge, this world with its devas, Maras, and Brahmas, its generations with their contemplatives and Brahmins, their rulers and common people, has explained the Dhamma, admirable in the beginning, admirable in the middle, admirable in the end, has expounded the holy life both in its particulars, in its essence, entirely perfect, surpassingly pure. It is beneficial to see such a worthy one. So Lohika said to Rasika the barber, "Come, dear Rasika, go to Gautama the contemplative, and on arrival ask whether he is free from illness and affliction, is carefree, strong, and living in comfort, saying, the Brahmin Lohika, Master Gautama, asks whether you are free from illness and affliction, and are carefree, strong, and living in comfort. And then say, may Master Gautama, together with a company of bhikshus, consent to Manana's meal with the Brahmin Lohika." Responding, "As you say, sir," to the Brahmin Lohika, Rosika the barber went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, bowing down to him, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, "The Brahmin Lohika, Master, asks whether the Blessed One is free from illness and affliction, is carefree, strong, and living in comfort." And he says, "May the Blessed One, together with the Sangha of bhikshus, to consent to Manana's meal with the Brahmin Lohika." The Blessed One consented through silence. Then Rasika the barber, understanding the Blessed One's consent, rose from his seat, bowed down to the Blessed One, circumambulated him, keeping him to his right, and returned to the Brahmin Lohika. On arrival, he said to him, "I have informed the Blessed One of your words, saying the Brahmin Lohika, Master, asks whether the Blessed One is free from illness and affliction, is carefree, strong, and living in comfort." And he says, "May the Blessed One, together with the Sangha of bhikshus, consent to Manana's meal with the Brahmin Lohika," and the Blessed One has consented. Then, as the night was ending, the Brahmin Lohika had choice staple and non-staple foods prepared in his own home, and then said to Rosika the barber, "Come, dear Rosika, go to Gautama the contemplative, and on arrival announce the time, saying, 'It is time, Master Gautama, the meal is ready.'" Responding, "As you say, sir," to the Brahmin Lohika, Rosika the barber went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, bowing down to him, stood to one side. As he was standing there, he announced the time, saying, "It is time, Master, the meal is ready." Then the Blessed One, having put on his robes early in the matin, carrying his bowl and outer robe, went together with a sangha of bhikshus to Salavatika. Meanwhile, Rosika the barber was following right behind the Blessed One, and said to him, "Master, an evil viewpoint to this effect has risen to the Brahmin Lohika. Suppose that a Brahmin or a contemplative were to arrive at a skillful doctrine. Having arrived at a skillful doctrine, he should not declare it to anyone else, for what can one person do for another? It would be just the same as if cutting through an old bondwoman were to make another new bond. I say that such a thing is an evil, greedy deed, for what can one person do for another? It would be beneficial if the Blessed One would extract the Brahmin Lohika from this evil viewpoint." Perhaps that will be, Rosika, perhaps that will be. Then the Blessed One went to the Brahmin Lohika's home. On arrival, he sat down on a seat made ready. The Brahmin Lohika, with his own hand, served and satisfied the Blessed One and the Sangha of bhikshus with choice staple and non-staple foods. Then, when this Blessed One had eaten and had removed his hand from his bowl, the Brahmin Lohika took a lower seat and sat to one side. As he was sitting there, the Blessed One said to him, "Is it true, Lohika, that an evil viewpoint to this effect has arisen to you? Suppose that a Brahmin or contemplative were to arrive at a skillful doctrine. Having arrived at the skillful doctrine, he should not declare it to anyone else, for what can one person do for another? It would be just the same as if, having cut through an old bond, one were to make another new bond. I say that such a thing is an evil, greedy deed, for what can one person do for another?" "Yes, Gautama." "What do you think, Lohika? Don't you reign over Salavatika?" "Yes, Master Gautama." "Now suppose someone were to say, the Brahmin Lohika reigns over Salavatika. He alone should consume the fruits and revenues of Salavatika, and not share them with others. Would someone speaking in this way be a creator of obstacles for your subjects, or would he not?" "He would be a creator of obstacles, Master Gautama. And being a creator of obstacles, would he be sympathetic for their well-being or not?" "He would not be sympathetic for their well-being, Master Gautama." "And in one not sympathetic for their well-being, would his mind be established in benevolent will for them, or in animosity?" "In animosity, Master Gautama." "When the mind is established in animosity, is there wrong view or right view?" "Wrong view, Master Gautama." "Now for one of wrong view, Lohika, I tell you, there is one of two destinations, either hell or the animal womb. What do you think, Lohika? Doesn't King Pasenadi Kosala reign over Kasi and Kosala?" "Yes, Master Gautama." "Now suppose someone were to say, King Pasenadi Kosala reigns over Kasi and Kosala. He alone should consume the fruits and revenues of Kasi and Kosala, and not share them with others. Would someone speaking in this way be a creator of obstacles for King Pasenadi subjects, you and others, or would he not?" "He would be a creator of obstacles, Master Gautama." "And being a creator of obstacles, would he be sympathetic for their well-being or not?" "He would not be sympathetic for their well-being, Master Gautama." "And in one not being sympathetic for their well-being, would his mind be established in benevolent will for them, or in animosity?" "In animosity, Master Gautama." "When the mind is established in animosity, is there wrong view or right view?" "Wrong view, Master Gautama." Now, for one of wrong view, Lohika, I tell you, there is one of two destinations, either hell or the animal womb. So then, Lohika, if anyone were to say, the Brahmin, Lohika, reigns over Salavatika, he alone should consume the fruits and revenues of Salavatika and not share them with others, he, speaking this way, would be a creator of obstacles for your subjects. Being a creator of obstacles, he would not be sympathetic for their well-being, and in one not sympathetic for their well-being, the mind would be established in animosity for them. When the mind is established in animosity, there is wrong view. For one of wrong view, I tell you, there is one of two destinations, either hell or the animal. In the same way, if anyone were to say, suppose that a Brahmin or a contemplative were to arrive at a skillful doctrine, having arrived at a skillful doctrine, he should not declare it to anyone else, for what can one person do for another? It would be just the same as if, having cut through an old bond, one were to make another new bond. I say that such a thing is an evil, greedy deed, for what can one person do for another? He, speaking in this way, would be a creator of obstacles for those children of benevolent families who, coming to the doctrine and discipline revealed by the Tathagata, attain the sort of grand distinction where they attain the fruit of stream entry, the fruit of once returning, the fruit of non-returning, the fruit of arahatship, and for those who ripen Deva wombs for the sake of bringing about the Deva state. Being a creator of obstacles, he would not be sympathetic for their well-being, and one not sympathetic for their well-being, the mind would be established in animosity for them. When the mind is established in animosity, there is wrong view. For one of wrong view, I tell you, there is one of two destinations, either hell or the animal womb. And if anyone were to say, King Pasenadi reigns over Kasi and Kosala, he alone should consume the fruits and revenues of Kasi and Kosala and not share them with others. He, speaking in this way, would be a creator of obstacles for King Pasenadi's subjects, you and others. Being a creator of obstacles, he would not be sympathetic for their well-being, and one not sympathetic for their well-being, the mind would be established in animosity for them. When the mind is established in animosity, there is wrong view. For one of wrong view, I tell you, there is one of two destinations, either hell or the animal womb. In the same way, if anyone were to say, suppose that a Brahmin or contemplative were to arrive at a skillful doctrine, having arrived at a skillful doctrine, he should not declare to anyone else, for what can one person do for another? It would be just the same as if, having cut through an old bond, one were to make another new bond. I say that such a thing is an evil, greedy deed, for what can one person do for another? He, speaking in this way, would be a creator of obstacles for those children of benevolent family who, coming to the doctrine and discipline revealed by the Tathagata, attain the sort of grand distinction where they attain the fruit of stream entry, the fruit of once returning, the fruit of non-returning, the fruit of arahatship, and also for those who ripen Deva wombs for the sake of bringing about the Deva state. Being a creator of obstacles, he would not be sympathetic for their well-being, and one not sympathetic for their well-being, the mind would be established in animosity for them. When the mind is established in animosity, there is wrong view. For one of wrong view, I tell you, there is one of two destinations, either hell or the animal womb. Lahika, there are these three sorts of teachers who are worthy of criticism in the world, and when anyone criticizes these sorts of teachers, the criticism is true, factual, righteous, and unblameworthy. Which three? There is the case where a certain teacher has not attained the goal of the contemplative life for which one goes forth from the home life into homelessness. He, not having attained that goal of the contemplative life, teaches his disciples, this is for your well-being, this is for your happiness. His disciples don't listen, don't lend ear, don't put forth an intent for gnosis. They practice in a way deviating from the teacher's instructions. He should be criticized, saying, you, venerable soul, have not attained the goal of the contemplative life for which one goes forth from the home life into homelessness. Not having attained that goal of the contemplative life, you teach your disciples, this is for your well-being, this is for your happiness. Your disciples don't listen, don't lend ear, don't put forth an intent for gnosis, and practice in a way deviating from the teacher's instructions. It's just as if a man were to pursue a woman who pulls away, or to embrace one who turns her back. I say that such a thing is an evil, greedy deed, for what can one person do for another? This is the first teacher who is worthy of criticism in the world, and when anyone criticizes this sort of teacher, the criticism is true, factual, righteous, and unblameworthy. Then there is the case when a certain teacher has not attained the goal of the contemplative life for which one goes forth from the home life into homelessness. He, not having attained that goal of the contemplative life, teaches his disciples, this is for your well-being, this is for your happiness. His disciples listen, lend ear, put forth an intent for gnosis, and practice in a way not deviating from the teacher's instructions. He should be criticized, saying, you, venerable sir, have not attained the goal of the contemplative life for which one goes forth from the home life into homelessness. Not having attained that goal of the contemplative life, you teach your disciples, this is for your well-being, this is for your happiness. Your disciples listen, lend ear, put forth an intent for gnosis, and practice in a way not deviating from the teacher's instructions. It's just as if a man neglecting his own field were to imagine that another field should be weeded. I say that such a thing is an evil, greedy deed, for what can one person do for another? This is the second teacher who is worthy of criticism in the world, and when anyone criticizes this sort of teacher, the criticism is true, factual, righteous, and unblameworthy. Then there is the case where a certain teacher has attained the goal of the contemplative life, for which one goes forth from the home life into homelessness. He, having attained that goal of the contemplative life, teaches his disciples, this is for your well-being, this is for your happiness. His disciples don't listen, don't lend ear, don't put forth an intent for gnosis. They practice in a way deviating from the teacher's instructions. He should be criticized, saying, you, venerable soul, have attained the goal of the contemplative life, for which one goes forth from the home life into the homelessness. Having attained that goal of the contemplative life, you teach your disciples, this is for your well-being, this is for your happiness. Your disciples don't listen, don't lend ear, don't put forth an intent for gnosis, and practice in a way deviating from the teacher's instructions. It's just as if having cut through an old bond, one more to make another new bond. I say that such a thing is an evil, greedy deed, for what can one person do for another? This is the third teacher who is worthy of criticism in the world, and when anyone criticizes this sort of teacher, the criticism is true, factual, righteous, and unblameworthy. When this was said, the Brahmin Lohika said to the Blessed One, but is there, Master Gotama, any teacher who is not worthy of criticism in the world? There is, Lohika, a teacher who is not worthy of criticism in the world. But which teacher, Master Gotama, is not worthy of criticism in the world? There is the case, Lohika, where a Tathagata appears in the world, worthy and rightly self-awakened. He teaches the Dharma, admirable in its beginning, admirable in its middle, admirable in its end. He proclaims the holy life both in its particulars and in its essence, entirely perfect, surpassingly pure. A householder or householder's son, hearing the Dharma, gains conviction in the Tathagata and reflects, household life is confining a dusty path. The life gone forth is like the open air. It is not easy living at home to practice the holy life, totally perfect, totally pure, like a polished shell. What if I were to shave off my hair and beard, put on the ochre robes, and go forth from the household life into homelessness? So after some time he abandons his mass of wealth, large or small, leaves his circle of relatives, large or small, shaves off his hair and beard, puts on the ochre robes, and goes forth from the household life into homelessness. When he has thus gone forth, he lives restrained by the rules of the monastic code, seeing danger in the slightest faults. Endowed with this noble aggregate of virtue, this noble restraint over the sense faculties, this noble mindfulness and alertness, and this noble contentment, he seeks out a secluded dwelling, a wilderness, the shade of a tree, a mountain, a glen, a hillside cave, a charnel ground, a forest grove, the open air, a heap of straw. After his meal, returning from his alms round, he sits down, crosses his legs, holds his body erect, and brings mindfulness to the fore. Abandoning covetousness with regard to the world, he dwells with an awareness devoid of covetousness. He cleanses his mind of covetousness. Abandoning ill will and anger, he dwells with an awareness devoid of ill will, sympathetic with the well-being of all living beings. He cleanses his mind of ill will and anger. Abandoning sloth and drowsiness, he dwells with an awareness devoid of sloth and drowsiness, mindful, alert, percipient of light. He cleanses his mind of sloth and drowsiness. Abandoning restlessness and anxiety, he dwells undisturbed, his mind unwordly stilled. He cleanses his mind of restlessness and anxiety. Abandoning uncertainty, he dwells having crossed over uncertainty with no perplexity with regard to skillful mental qualities. He cleanses his mind of uncertainty. Suppose that a man taking a loan invests it in his business affairs. His business affairs succeed. He repays his old debts, and there is extra left over for maintaining his wife. The thought would occur to him, before taking a loan, I invested it in my business affairs, but my business affairs have succeeded. I have repaid my old debts, and there is extra left over for maintaining my wife. Because of that, he would experience joy and happiness. Now suppose that a man falls sick, in pain, and seriously ill. He does not enjoy his meals, and there is no strength in his body. As time passes, he eventually recovers from that sickness. He enjoys his meals, and there is strength in his body. The thought would occur to him, before I was sick, now I am recovered from that sickness. I enjoy my meals, and there is strength in my body. Because of that, he would experience joy and happiness. Now suppose that a man is bound in prison. As time passes, he eventually is released from that bondage, safe and sound, with no loss of property. The thought would occur to him, before I was bound in prison, now I am released from that bondage, safe and sound, with no loss of my property. Because of that, he would experience joy and happiness. Now suppose that a man is a slave subject to others, not subject to himself, unable to go where he likes. As time passes, he eventually is released from that slavery, subject to himself, not subject to others, freed, able to go where he likes. The thought would occur to him, before I was a slave, now I am released from that slavery, subject to myself, not subject to others, freed, able to go where I like. Because of that, he would experience joy and happiness. Now suppose that a man carrying money and treasures is traveling by a road through desolate country. As time passes, he eventually emerges from that desolate country, safe and sound, with no loss of property. The thought would occur to him, before carrying money and treasures, I was traveling by a road through desolate country. Now I have emerged from that desolate country, safe and sound, with no loss of my property. Because of that, he would experience joy and happiness. In the same way, when these 5 hindrances are not abandoned in himself, the monk regards it as a debt, as sickness, a prison, slavery, a road through desolate country. But when these 5 hindrances are abandoned in himself, he regards it as unindebtedness, health, release from prison, freedom, a place of security. Seeing that they have been abandoned within him, he becomes glad, he becomes enraptured, his body grows tranquil. His body tranquil, he is sensitive to pleasure, feeling pleasure, his mind becomes concentrated. Quite withdrawn from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful mental qualities, he enters and remains in the first jhana, rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. He permeates and pervades, suffuses and fills this very body with the rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal. Just as if a skillful bathman or bathman's apprentice would pour bath powder into a brass basin and knead it together, sprinkling it again and again with water, so that his ball of bath powder, saturated, moisture-laden, permeated within and without, would nevertheless not drip. Even so, the monk permeates this very body with the rapture and pleasure born of withdrawal. There is nothing of his entire body unpervaded by rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal. When a disciple of a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lohika, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. Further, with the stilling of directed thoughts and evaluations, he enters and remains in the second jhana, rapture and pleasure born of composure, unification of awareness, free from directed thought and evaluation, internal assurance. He permeates and pervades, suffuses and fills this very body with the rapture and pleasure born of composure, just like a lake with spring water welling up from within, having no inflow from the east, west, north, or south, and with the skies supplying abundant showers time and again, so that the cool fount of water welling up from within the lake would permeate and pervade, suffuse and fill it with cool waters, there being no part of the lake unpervaded by the cool waters. Even so, the monk permeates this very body with the rapture and pleasure born of composure. There is nothing of this entire body unpervaded by rapture and pleasure born of composure. When a disciple of a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lohika, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. And further, with the fading of rapture, he remains equanimous, mindful and alert, and senses pleasure with the body. He enters and remains in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare equanimous and mindful. He has a pleasant abiding. He permeates and pervades, suffuses and fills this very body with the pleasure divested of rapture. Just as in a lotus pond, some of the lotuses born and growing in the water stay immersed in the water and flourish without standing up out of the water, so that they are permeated and pervaded, suffused, and suffused and filled with cool water from their roots to their tips, and nothing of those lotuses would be unpervaded with cool water. Even so, the monk permeates this very body with a pleasure divested of rapture. There is nothing of his entire body unpervaded with pleasure divested of rapture. When a disciple or a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lohika, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. And further, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, as with the earlier disappearance of elation and distress, he enters and remains in the fourth jhana, purity and equanimity and mindfulness, neither pleasure nor pain. He sits permeating the body with a pure, bright awareness, just as if a man were sitting up covered from head to foot with a white cloth, so that there would be no part of his entire body, to which the white cloth did not extend. Even so, the monk sits permeating the body with a pure, bright awareness. There is nothing of his entire body unpervaded by pure, bright awareness. When a disciple or a teacher attains the sort of grand distinction, Lohika, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. With his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to knowledge and vision. He discerns this body of mine is endowed with form, composed of the four primary elements, born from more and far, nourished with rice and porridge, subject to inconstancy, rubbing, pressing, dissolution, and dispersion. And this consciousness of mine is supported here and bound up here, just as if there were a beautiful beryl gem of the purest water, eight-faceted, well-polished, clear, limpid, consummate in all its aspects, and going through the middle of it was a blue, yellow, red, white, or brown thread, and a man with benevolent eyesight, taking it in his hand, would work to reflect on it thus: this is a beautiful beryl gem of the purest water, eight-faceted, well-polished, clear, limpid, consummate in all its aspects, and this going through the middle of it is a blue, yellow, red, white, or brown thread. In the same way, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs and inclines it to knowledge and vision. He discerns this body of mine is endowed with form, composed of the four primary elements, born from more and far, nourished with rice and porridge, subject to inconstancy, rubbing, pressing, dissolution, and dispersion. And this consciousness of mine is supported here and bound up here. When the disciple of a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lahiga, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. With his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to creating a mind-made body. From this body he creates another body endowed with form, made of the mind, complete in all its parts, not inferior in its faculties. Just as if a man were to draw a reed from its sheath, the thought would occur to him, this is the sheath, this is the reed. The sheath is one thing, the reed another, but the reed has been drawn out from the sheath. Or as if a man were to draw a sword from its scabbard, the thought would occur to him, this is the sword, this is the scabbard. The sword is one thing, the scabbard another, but the sword has been drawn out from the scabbard. Or as if a man were to pull a snake from its slaw, he would think, the thought would occur to him, this is the snake, this is the slaw. The snake is one thing, the slaw another, but the snake has been pulled out from the slaw. In the same way, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs and inclines it to creating a mind-made body. From this body he creates another body, endowed with form, made of the mind, complete in all its parts, not inferior in its faculties. When a disciple of a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. When his mind is thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the modes of supernormal powers. He wields manifold supernormal powers. Having been one, he becomes many. Having been many, he becomes one. He appears, he vanishes, he goes unimpeded through walls, ramparts, and mountains as if through space. He dives in and out of the earth as if it were water. He walks on the water without sinking as if it were dry land. Sitting cross-legged, he flies through the air like a winged bird. With his hand, he touches and strokes even the soleil and moon, so mighty and powerful. He experiences influence with his body, even as distant as the Brahma worlds. Just as if a skilled potter or his assistant could craft from well-prepared clay whatever kind of pottery vessel he likes, or as a skilled ivory carver or his assistant could craft from well-prepared ivory any kind of ivory work he likes, or as a skilled goldsmith or his assistant could craft from well-prepared gold any kind of gold article he likes. In the same way, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs and inclines it to the modes of supernormal powers. He exercises influence with his body, even as distant as the Brahma worlds. When a disciple or a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lohika, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. With his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the sacred ear element. He hears by means of the sacred ear element, purified and surpassing the human, both kinds of sounds, sacred and human, whether near or distant. Just as if a man traveling along a highway were to hear the sound of kettle drums, small drums, conches, and cymbals, and tom-toms, he would know that is the sound of kettle drums, that is the sound of small drums, that is the sound of conches, that is the sound of cymbals, that is the sound of tom-toms. In the same way, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs and inclines it to the sacred ear element. He hears by means of the sacred ear element, purified and surpassing the human, both kinds of sound, sacred and human, whether near or distant. When a disciple of a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lohika, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. With his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to knowledge of the awareness of other beings. He knows the awareness of other beings, other individuals, having encompassed it with his own awareness. He discerns a mind with passion as a mind with passion, and a mind without passion as a mind without passion. He discerns a mind with aversion as a mind with aversion, and a mind without aversion as a mind without aversion. He discerns a man with delusion as a mind with delusion, and a mind without delusion as a mind without delusion. He discerns a restricted mind as a restricted mind, and a scattered mind as a scattered mind. He discerns an enlarged mind as an enlarged mind, and an unenlarged mind as an unenlarged mind. He discerns an excelled mind at one that is not at the most excellent level as an excelled mind, and an unexcelled mind has an unexcelled mind. He discerns a concentrated mind as a concentrated mind, and an unconcentrated mind as an unconcentrated mind. He discerns a released mind as a released mind, and an unreleased mind as an unreleased mind. Just as if a young woman or man fond of ornaments, examining the reflection of her own face in a bright mirror or a bowl of clear water, would know blemished if it were blemished, or unblemished if it were not. In the same way, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs it and inclines it to knowledge of the awareness of the other beings. He knows the awareness of other beings, other individuals, having encompassed it with his own awareness. He discerns a mind with passion as a mind with passion, and a mind without passion as a mind without passion, a released mind as a released mind, and an unreleased mind as an unreleased mind. When a disciple of a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lohika, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. With his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to knowledge of the collection of past lives, previous homes. He recollects his manifold past lives, 1 birth, 2 births, 3 births, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000, 100,000, many eons of cosmic contraction, many eons of cosmic expansion, many eons of cosmic contraction, expansion, recollecting, there I had such a name, belonged to such a clan, had such an experience, such was my food, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such the end of my life. Passing away from that state, I rearose there too I had such a name, belonged to such a clan, had such an appearance, such was my food, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such the end of my life. Passing away from that state, I rearose here. Thus he recollects his manifold past lives in their modes and details, just as if a man were to go from his home village to another village, and then from that village to yet another village, and then from that village back to his home village. The thought would occur to him, I went from my home village to that other village over there. I stood in such a way, sat in such a way, talked in such a way, and remained silent in such a way. From that village I went to that village over there, and there I stood in such a way, sat in such a way, talked in such a way, and remained silent in such a way. From that village I came back home. In the same way, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs and inclines it to knowledge of the recollection of past lives. He recollects his manifold past lives in their modes and details. When a disciple of a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lohika, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. With his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. He sees by means of the sacred eye, purified and surpassing the human beings, passing away and reappearing, and he discerns how they are inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, in accordance with their karma. These beings who were endowed with bad conduct of body, speech, and mind, who reviled the noble ones, who held wrong views and undertook actions under the influence of wrong views, with the breakup of the body after death, have reappeared in the plane of deprivation, the bad destination, the lower realms, and hell. But these beings who were endowed with the benevolent conduct of body, speech, and mind, who died not revile the noble ones who held the right views and undertook actions under the influence of right views, with the breakup of the body after death having reappeared in the benevolent destinations in the heavenly world. Thus, by means of the sacred eye, purified and surpassing the human, he sees beings passing away and reappearing, and he discerns how they are inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, in accordance with their karma. Just as if there were a tall building in the central square of a town, and a man with benevolent eyesight standing on top of it were to see people entering a house, leaving it, walking along the street, and sitting in the central square. The thought would occur to him, these people are entering a house, leaving it, walking along the street, and sitting in the central square. In the same way, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs and inclines it to knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. He sees by means of the sacred eye, purified and surpassing the human beings passing away and reappearing, and he discerns how they are inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, in accordance with their karma. When a disciple of a teacher attains the sort of grand distinction, Lihiga, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. With his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the ending of the mental fermentations. He discerns as it has come to be that this is stress, this is the origination of stress, this is the cessation of stress, this is the way leading to the cessation of stress. These are the mental fermentations, this is the origination of the fermentations, this is the cessation of fermentations, this is the way leading to the cessation of fermentations. His heart thus knowing, thus seeing, is released from the fermentation of sensuality, the fermentation of becoming, the fermentation of ignorance. With release there is the knowledge released. He discerns that birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. There is nothing further for this world. Just as if there were a pool of water in a mountain glen, clear, limpid, and unsullied, where a man with benevolent eyesight standing on the bank could see shells, gravel, and pebbles, and also shoals of fish swimming and resting, and it would occur to him, this pool of water is clear, limpid, and unsullied. There are these shells, gravel, pebbles, and also these shoals of fish swarming about and resting. In the same way, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, the monk directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the ending of the mental fermentations. He discerns as it has come to be that this is stress, this is the origination of stress, this is the cessation of stress, this is the way leading to the cessation of stress. These are the mental fermentations, this is the origin of the fermentations, this is the cessation of fermentations, this is the way leading to the cessation of fermentations. His heart thus knowing, thus seeing, is released from the fermentation of sensuality, the fermentation of becoming, the fermentation of ignorance. With release there is the knowledge released. He discerns that birth is indeed the holy life, birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done, there is nothing further for this world. When a disciple of a teacher attains this sort of grand distinction, Lahiga, that is a teacher not worthy of criticism in the world, and if anyone were to criticize this sort of teacher, the criticism would be false, unfactual, unrighteous, and blameworthy. When this was said, the Brahman Lohika said to the Blessed One, Master Gotama, it's as if a man having seized by the hair another man who was falling into the pit of hell were to pull him up and set him on firm ground. In the same way, Master Gotama has pulled me up as I was falling into the pit of hell and has set me on firm ground. Magnificent, Master Gotama, magnificent, just as if he were to place upright what was overturned, to reveal what was hidden, to show the way to one who was lost, or to carry a lamp into the dark so that those with eyes could see forms. In the same way has Master Gotama, through many lines of reasoning, made the Dharma clear. I go to Master Gotama for refuge, to the Dharma, and to the Sangha monks. I go to Master Gotama for sanctuary, to the Dharma, and to the Sangha monks. May Master Gotama remember me as a bhikshu who has gone to him for refuge from this day forward. Magnificent, Master Gotama, magnificent. Just as if he were to place upright what was overturned, were to reveal to reveal what was hidden, to show the way to one who was lost, or to carry a lamp into the dark so that those with eyes could see forms. In the same way has Master Gotama, through many lines of reasoning, made the Dharma clear. I go to Master Gotama for guidance to the Dharma and to the Sangha of Bhikshus. May Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for guidance from this day forward for life. Dhammapada, the Piya Vaga, 16. Giving himself to things to be shunned, and not exerting where exertion is needed. A seeker after pleasures, having given up his true well-being, envies those intent upon theirs. Seek no intimacy with the beloved, and also not with the unloved. For not to see the beloved and to see the unloved, both are painful. Therefore hold nothing dear, for separation from the dear is painful. There are no bonds for those who have nothing beloved or unloved. From endearments springs grief, from endearment springs fear. For one who is wholly free from endearment there is no grief, whence then fear? From affection springs grief, from affection springs fear. For one who is wholly free from affection there is no grief, whence then fear? From attachment springs grief, from attachment springs fear. For one who is wholly free from attachment there is no grief, whence then fear? From lust springs grief, from lust springs fear. For one who is wholly free from craving there is no grief, whence then fear? From craving springs grief, from craving springs fear. For one who is wholly free from craving there is no grief, whence then fear? People hold dear him who embodies virtue and insight, who is principled, has actualized the truth, and who himself does what he ought to be doing. One who is intent upon the ineffable nibbana, dwells with mind inspired by supramundane wisdom, and is no further bound by sense pleasures. Such a man is called one bound upstream. When, after a long absence, a man safely returns from a distance, his relatives, friends, and well-wishers welcome him home on arrival. As kinsmen welcome a dear one on arrival, even so his own benevolent deeds will welcome the doer of benevolence, who has gone from this world to the next. Gospels, Mark 3:4. Another time Jesus went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on Shabbat. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." Then Jesus asked them, "Which is lawful on Shabbat, to do benevolence or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they remained silent. He looked around at them in anger, and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the lake, and a large crowd from Galilee followed. When they heard about all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, and the regions across the Jordan and around Tyre and Sidon. Because of the crowd, he told his disciples to have a small boat ready for him to keep the people from crowding him. For he had healed many, so that those with diseases were pushing forward to touch him. Whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." But he gave them strict orders not to tell others about him. Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to him those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12 that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach, and to have authority to drive out demons. These are the 12 he appointed: Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter; James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. To them he gave the name Boanerges, which means sons of thunder; Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. Then Jesus entered the house, and again a crowd gathered, so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, "He is out of his mind." And the teachers of the law who came down from Jerusalem said, "He is possessed by Beelzebub. By the prince of demons he is driving out demons." So Jesus called them over to him and began to speak to them in parables. "How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. If Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand. His end has come. In fact, no one can enter a strong man's house without first tying him up. Then he can plunder the strong man's house. Truly, I tell you, people can be forgiven all their sins and every slander they utter, but whoever blasphemies against the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven. They are guilty of an eternal sin. He said this because they were saying he has an impure spirit. Then Jesus' more and brothers arrived, standing outside. They sent someone in to call him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, "Your more and brothers are outside looking for you." "Who are my more and my brothers?" he asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, "Here are my more and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and more." Again, Jesus began to teach by the lake. The crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and sat in it out on the lake, whilst all the people were along the shore at the water's edge. He taught them many things by parables, and in his teaching said, "Listen, a tiller went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the soleil came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell amongst thorns, which grew up and choked the plants so that they did not bear grain. Still other seed fell on benevolent soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times. Then Jesus said, "Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear." When he was alone, the 12 and the others around him asked him about the parables. He told them, "The secret of the sovereignty of God has been given to you, but to those on the outside everything is said in parables, so that they may be ever seeing but never perceiving, and ever hearing but never understanding. Otherwise they might turn and be forgiven." Then Jesus said to them, "Don't you understand this parable? How then will you understand any parable? The tiller sows the word. Some people are like the seed along the path where the word is sown. As soon as they hear it, Satan comes and takes away the word that was sown in them. Others, like seed sown on rocky places, hear the word and at once receive it with joy. But since they have no root, they last only for a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. Still others, like seed sown amongst thorns, hear the word, but the worries of this life, the deceitfulness of wealth, and the desires for other things come in and choke the word, making it unfruitful. Others, like seed sown on benevolent soil, hear the word, accept it, and produce a crop, some 30, some 60, some 100 times what was sown." He said to them, "Do you bring in a lamp to put it under a bowl or a bed? Instead, don't you put it on its stand? For whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. If anyone has ears to hear, let them hear. Consider carefully what you hear," he continued. "With the measure you utilize, it will be measured to you, and even further. Whoever has will be given further. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them." He also said, "This is what the sovereignty of God is like. A man scatters seed on the ground. Night and day, whether he sleeps or gets up, the seed sprouts and grows, though he does not know how. All by itself the soil produces grain, first the stalk, then the head, then the full kernel in the head. As soon as the grain is ripe, he puts the sickle to it because the harvest has come." Again he said, "What shall we say the sovereignty of God is like, or what parable shall we utilize to describe it? It is like a mustard seed, which is the smallest of all seeds on the earth. Yet when planted, it grows and becomes the largest of all garden plants, with such big branches that the birds can perch in its shade." With many similar parables, Jesus spoke the word to them as much as they could understand. He did not say anything to them without utilizing a parable, but when he was alone with his own disciples, he explained everything. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." Quran, Surah Bani Israel 17. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Glory to Allah, who did take Allah's servant for a journey by night from the sacred masjid to the furthest masjid, whose precincts we did bless, in order that we might show him some of our signs, for Allah is the one who heareth and seeth all things. We gave Moshe the book and made it a guide to the children of Israel, commanding, Take not other than me as disposer of your affairs, O ye that are sprung from those whom we carried in the ark with Noach. Verily he was a devotee most grateful. And we gave clear warning to the children of Israel in the book, that twice would they do mischief on the earth and be elated with mighty arrogance, and twice would they be punished. When the first of the warnings came to pass, we sent against you our servants given to terrible warfare. They entered the very inmost parts of your homes, and it was a warning completely fulfilled. Then did we grant you the return as against them. We gave you increase in resources and sons, and made you the further numerous in manpower. If ye did well, ye did well for yourselves. If ye did evil, ye did it against yourselves. So when the second of the warnings came to pass, we permitted your enemies to disfigure your faces, and to enter your temple as they had entered it before, and to visit with destruction all that fell into their power. It may be that your Lord may yet show mercy unto you, but if ye revert to your sins, we shall revert to our punishments. And we have made hell a prison for those who reject all faith. Verily this Quran doth guide to that which is most right or stable, and giveth the glad tidings to the believers who work deeds of righteousness, that they shall have a magnificent reward. And to those who believe not in the hereafter, it announceth that we have prepared for them a penalty grievous indeed. The prayer that man should make for benevolence, he maketh for evil, for man is given to hasty deeds. We have made the night and the day as two of our signs. The sign of the night have we obscured, whilst the sign of the day we have made to enlighten you, that ye may seek bounty from your Lord, and that ye may know the number and count of the years. And all things have we explained in detail. Every man's fate we have fastened on his own neck on the day of judgment. We shall bring out for him a scroll which he will see spread open. It will be said to him, Read thine own record. Sufficient is thy soul this day to make out an account against thee. Who receiveth guidance receiveth it for his own benefit. Who goeth astray doth so to his own loss. No bare burdens can bear the burden of another, nor would we visit with our wrath until we had sent an apostle to give warning. When we decide to destroy a population, we first send a definite order to those amongst them who are given the benevolent things of this life and yet transgress, so that the word is proved true against them. Then it is we destroy them utterly. How many generations have we destroyed after Noach? And enough is thy Lord to note and see the sins of Allah's servants. If any do wish for the transitory things of this life, we rarely grant them such things as we will, to such persons as we will. In the end we have provided hell for them. They will burn therein, disgraced and rejected. Those who do wish for the things of the hereafter and strive therefore with all due striving and have faith, they are the ones whose striving is acceptable to Allah. Of the bounties of thy Lord we bestow freely on all these as well as those. The bounties of thy Lord are not closed to anyone. See how we have bestowed further on some than on others, but verily the hereafter is further in rank and gradation, and further in excellence. Take not with Allah another object of worship, or thou, O man, wilt sit in disgrace and destitution. Thy Lord hath decreed that ye worship none but Allah, and that ye be kind to parents, whether one or both of them attained old age in thy life. Say not to them a word of contempt, nor repel them, but address them in terms of honor. And out of kindness lower to them the wing of humility, and say, My Lord, bestow on them thy mercy, even as they cherished me in childhood. Your Lord knoweth best what is in your hearts. If ye do deeds of righteousness, verily Allah is most forgiving to those who turn to Allah again and again in true penitence. And render to the kindred their due rights, as also to those in want, and to the wayfarer, but squander not your wealth in the manner of a spendthrift. Verily spendthrifts are brothers of the evil ones, and the evil one is to his Lord by Allah ungrateful. And even if thou hast to turn away from them in pursuit of the mercy from thy Lord which thou dost expect, yet speak to them a word of easy kindness. Make not thy hand tied like a stingy one's to thy neck, nor stretch it forth to his utmost reach, so that thou become blameworthy and destitute. Verily thy Lord doth provide sustenance in abundance for whom Allah pleaseth, and Allah provideth in a just measure, for Allah doth know and regard all Allah's servants. Kill not your children for fear of want. We shall provide sustenance for them as well as for you. Verily the killing of them is a great sin. Nor come nigh to adultery, for it is a shameful deed, and an evil opening the road to other evils. Nor take life which Allah has made sacred, except for just cause. And if anyone is slain wrongfully, we have given as their authority to demand kisses or to forgive. But let him not exceed bounds in the matter of taking life, for he is held by the law. Come not nigh to the orphan's property, except to improve it, until he attains the age of full strength, and fulfill every engagement, for every engagement will be inquired into on the day of reckoning. Give full measure when ye measure, and weigh with a balance that is straight. That is the most fitting, the most advantageous, and the final determination. And pursue not that of which thou hast no knowledge, for every act of hearing, or of seeing, or of feeling in the heart will be inquired into on the day of reckoning. Nor walk on the earth with insolence, for thou canst not rend the earth asunder, nor reach the mountains in height. Of all such things the evil is hated in the sight of thy Lord. These are amongst the precepts of wisdom which thy Lord has revealed to thee. Take not with Allah another object of worship, lest thou should be thrown into hell, blameworthy and rejected. Has then your Lord, O heediness, preferred for you sons, and taken for Allah daughters amongst the angels? Truly ye utter a most dreadful saying. We have explained things in various ways in this Quran in order that they may receive admonition, but it only increases their flight from the truth. Say, if there had been other deities with Allah, as they say, behold, they would certainly have sought out a way to the Lord of the throne. Glory to Allah. Allah is high above all that they say, exalted and great beyond measure. The seven heavens and the earth and all beings therein declare Allah's glory. There is not a thing but celebrates Allah's praise. And yet ye understand not how they declare Allah's glory. Verily Allah is all forbearing, most forgiving. When thou dost recite the Quran, we put between thee and those who believe not in the hereafter a veil invisible. And we put coverings over their hearts and minds, lest they should understand the Quran, and deafness into their ears. When thou dost commemorate thy Lord and Allah alone in the Quran, they turn on their backs, fleeing from the truth. We know best why it is they listen when they listen to thee, and when they meet in private conference. Behold, the wicked say, ye follow none other than a man bewitched. See what similes they strike for thee, but they have gone astray, and never can they find a way. They say, what, when we are reduced to bones and dust, should we truly be raised up to be a new creation? Say, nay, be ye stones or iron, or created matter, which in your minds is harder to be raised up. Yet shall ye be raised up. Then will they say, who will cause us to return? Say, Allah who created you first. Then will they wag their heads towards thee, and say, when will that be? Say, maybe it will be quite soon. It will be on a day when Allah will call you, and ye will answer Allah's call with words of Allah's praise, and ye will think that ye tarried but a little while. Say to my servants that they should only say those things that are best, for Satan doth sow dissensions amongst them, for Satan is to man an avowed enemy. It is your Lord that knoweth you best. If Allah please, Allah granteth you mercy, or if Allah please, punishment. We have not sent thee to be a disposer of their affairs for them. And it is your Lord that knoweth best all beings that are in the heavens and on earth. We did bestow on some prophets further and other gifts than on others, and we gave to David the gift of the Psalms. Say, call on those besides Allah whom ye fancy they have neither the power to remove your troubles from you, nor to change them. Those whom they call upon do desire for themselves means of access to their Lord, even those who are nearest. They hope for Allah's mercy and fear Allah's wrath, for the wrath of thy Lord is something to take heed of. There is not a population, but we shall destroy it before the day of judgment, or punish it with a dreadful penalty that is written in the eternal record. And we refrained from sending the signs only because the men of former generations treated them as false. We sent the she-camel to the Talmud to open their eyes, but they treated her wrongfully. We only send the signs by way of terror and warning from evil. Behold, we told thee that thy Lord doth encompass mankind round about. We granted the vision which we bestowed thee, but as a trial for men, and as also the cursed tree mentioned in the Quran. We put terror and warning into them, but it only increases their inordinate transgression. Behold, we said to the angels, bow down to Adam. They bowed down, except Iblis. He said, shall I bow down to one whom thou didst create from clay? He said, seest thou, this is the one whom thou hast honored above me. If thou wilt but respite me to the day of judgment, I will surely bring his descendants under my sway, all but a few. Allah said, go thy way. If any of them follow thee, verily hell will be the recompense of you all, an ample recompense. Lead to destruction those whom thou canst amongst them with thy seductive voice. Make assaults on them with thy cavalry and thy infantry. Mutually share with them wealth and children, and make promises to them. But Satan promises them nothing but deceit. As for my servants, no authority shalt thou have over them. Enough is thy Lord for a disposer of affairs. Your Lord is Allah, that maketh the ship go smoothly for you through the sea, in order that you may seek of Allah's bounty, for Allah is unto you most merciful. When distress seizes you at sea, those that ye call upon besides Allah leave you in the lurch, but when Allah brings you back safe to land, ye turn away from Allah. Most ungrateful is man. Do ye then feel secure that Allah will not cause you to be swallowed up beneath the earth when ye are on land, or that Allah will not send against you a violent tornado with showers of stones, so that ye shall find no one to carry out of your affairs for you? So that you shall find no one to carry out your affairs for you? Or do you feel secure that Allah will not send you back a second time to sea, and send against you a heavy gale to drown you because of your ingratitude, so that you find no helper therein against us? We have honored the sons of Adam, provided them with transport on land and sea, given them for sustenance things benevolent and pure, and conferred on them special favors above a great part of our creation. One day we shall call together all human beings with their respective imams. Those who are given their record in their right hand will read it with pleasure, and they will not be dealt with unjustly in the least. But those who were blind in this world will be blind in the hereafter, and most astray from the path. And their purpose was to tempt thee away from that which we revealed unto thee, to substitute in our name something quite different. In that case, behold, they would certainly have made thee their friend. And had we not given thee strength, thou wouldst nearly have inclined to them a little. This was our way with the apostles we sent before thee. Thou wilt find no change in our ways. Establish regular prayers at the soleil's decline to the darkness of the night, and the matin prayer and reading, for the prayer and reading in the matin carry their testimony. And pray in the small watches of the matin. It would be an additional prayer or spiritual benefit for thee. Soon will thy Lord raise thee to a station of honor and glory. Say, O my Lord, let my entry be by the gate of truth and honor, and likewise my exit by the gate of truth and honor, and grant me from thy presence an authority to aid me. And say, truth has now arrived, and falsehood perished, for falsehood is by its nature bound to perish. We send down stage by stage in the Quran that which is a healing and a mercy to those who believe. To the unjust it causes nothing but loss after loss. Yet when we bestow our favors on man, he turns away and becomes remote on his side instead of coming to us, and when evil seizes him, he gives himself up to despair. Say, everyone acts according to his own disposition, but your Lord knows best who it is that is best guided on the way. They ask thee concerning the spirit of inspiration. Say, the spirit cometh by command of my Lord. Of knowledge it is only a little that is communicated to you, O man. If it were our will, we could take away that which we have sent thee by inspiration. Then wouldst thou find none to plead thy affair in that matter as against us, except for mercy from thy Lord, for Allah's bounty is to thee indeed great. Say, if the whole of mankind and jinns were to gather together to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like thereof, even if they backed up each other with help and support. And we have explained to men in this Quran every kind of similitude, yet the greater part of men refuse to receive it except with ingratitude. They say, we shall not believe in thee until thou cause a spring to gush forth for us from the earth, or until thou have a garden of date trees and vines, and cause rivers to gush forth in their midst, carrying abundant water, or thou cause the sky to fall in portions, as thou sayest will happen against us, or thou bring Allah and the angels before us face to face, or thou have a house adorned with gold, or thou mount a ladder right into the skies. No, we shall not even believe in thy mounting until thou send down to us a book that we could read. Say, glory to my Lord, am I aught but a man, an apostle? What kept men back from belief when guidance came to them was nothing but this. They said, has Allah sent a man like us to be Allah's messenger? Say, if there were settled on earth angels walking about in peace and quiet, we should certainly have sent them down from the heavens an angel for an apostle. Say, enough is Allah for a witness between me and you, for Allah is well acquainted with Allah's servants, and Allah sees all things. It is he whom Allah guides that is on true guidance, but he whom Allah leaves astray, for such wilt thou find no protector besides Allah. On the day of judgment we shall gather them together, prone on their faces, blind, dumb, and deaf. Their abode will be hell. Every time it shows abatement, we shall increase from them the fierceness of the fire. That is the recompense, because they rejected our signs, and said, when we are reduced to bones and broken dust, should we truly be raised up to a new creation? See they not that Allah who created the heavens and the earth has power to create the like of them anew? Only Allah has decreed a term appointed, of which there is no doubt, but the unjust refuse to receive it except with ingratitude. Say, if ye had control of the treasures of the mercy of my Lord, behold, ye would keep them back for fear of spending them, for man is ever stingy. To Moshe we did give 9 clear signs, as the children of Israel. When he came to them, Pharaoh said to him, O Moshe, I consider thee indeed to have been worked up by sorcery. Moshe said, Thou knowest well that these things have been sent down by none but the Lord of the heavens and the earth, as eye-opening evidence, and I consider thee indeed, O Pharaoh, to be one doomed to destruction. So he resolved to remove them from the face of the earth, but we did drown him and all who were with him. And we said thereafter to the children of Israel, Dwell securely in the land of promise. But when the second of the warnings came to pass, we gathered you together in a mingled crowd. We sent down the Quran in truth, and in truth has it descended, and we sent thee but to give glad tidings and to warn sinners. It is a Quran which we have divided into parts from time to time, in order that thou mightest recite it to men at intervals. We have revealed it by stages. Whether ye believe in it or not, it is true that those who were given knowledge beforehand, when it is recited to them, fall down on their faces in humble prostration. And they say, Glory to our Lord, truly has the promise of our Lord been fulfilled. They fall down on their faces in tears, and it increases their earnest humility. Say, Call upon Allah or call upon Rahman. By whatever name you call upon Allah, it is well, for to Allah belong the most beautiful names. Neither speak thy prayer aloud, nor speak it in a low tone, but seek a middle course between. Say, Praise be to Allah, who begets no son and has no partner in Allah's dominion, nor needs Allah any to protect Allah from humiliation. Yea, magnify Allah for Allah's greatness and glory. Sri Guru Granth Sahib, verse 28 a 30. In a way, I am also a yogi, but instead of earrings of wood, I wear the earrings of contentment. I make modesty my begging bowl and wallet, and smear myself with the ashes of Vaheguru's meditation. The fear of death is my patched coat. To keep my body chaste like a virgin, and thus free from all evils, is the way of my yoga. To have faith and trust in Vaheguru is my staff. For me to believe in the brotherhood of all mankind is the Ai Pant. I believe that if you conquer your mind, you can conquer the entire world. I salute that Vaheguru who is primal and pure. Vaheguru has been there since the beginning, is indestructible, and remains the same through all ages. O Yogi, I make divine knowledge my food and mercy my steward. The divine flowing music of life ringing in every heart is my horn. For me, Vaheguru by Vaheguru is the Supreme Master who has the entire universe under Vaheguru's control. I believe that performing any supernatural feats or miracles are useless enjoyment for others who are not interested in true yoga or union with Vaheguru. Vaheguru by Vaheguru regulates both union and separation of individuals who receive what is written in their destiny based on past deeds. Therefore I salute that Vaheguru who is primal, colorless, present since the beginning, indestructible and unchanging. Many believe that first it was Maya, the primal Moor, and the creative principle who was established first, and from Maya were created 3 celestial beings. One is Brahma, the creator, the other Vishnu, the sustainer, and the third Shiva, the destroyer. However, the fact is that it is Vaheguru by Vaheguru who orchestrates the world as it pleases Vaheguru, and the world functions according to the command issued by Vaheguru. The great wonder is that whilst Vaheguru can see all the creatures, they cannot see Vaheguru. Therefore, I salute that Vaheguru who is primal and pure. Vaigu has been present since the beginning, is indestructible, and remains the same through all ages. Alhamdulillah, Ar-Rahmani Ar-Rahim, Allahu Akbar. Dao ka dao, fei chong dao, min ka min, fei chong min. Ja Rastafari. Deus nos daqui essentielle Santa Fakita nomentum. Vahe Guru Satnam. Baruch ata Elohim, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher gazalnu b'mitzvotav v'tzivan l'suk b'dvar Torah. Amen. Baruch ata Elohim, Eloheinu melech haolam, ba'orei peri agafim. Amen. Kyrie eleison, sivamastu savejikatehim, sabe sata b'avantu sukitata. Vagabiyam. Aquaba upendo na amani. Fikiri inesilami. Chinta dam permen libovmim umejikam. Ubuntu shubono fakitka. Sheshem. Kamosanida. Damo arigato. Pelama yellow walking token. Toka doka shingun. Go managan. God, we thank you for all that you bless us. Ata jam yata afanami. Mado. Yaho. Om shanti shanti shanti. Amen. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Mir. Satnam. Jai Jinendran. Zajen. Adios. Jai Chakris. Metta Samadhi. Eshwaso. Agape ke irini. Asempena asmuje. Kila ufred. One love, peace, happiness, liberation. Blessed love and peace. All thanks and praise to the Most High. Elohim Jah Rastafari.